Hey there, Orioles fans. Today is Thursday, May 5th, 2022, and welcome back in to the Locked On Orioles podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. As always, I'm your host, Connor Newcomb, and coming up on today's episode, we're going to, of course, recap the action from Wednesday night between the Orioles and the Twins, but more importantly, we're taking a closer look at the Orioles bullpen, specifically the guys who have had so much success this year. Jorge López at the back end, and the rookie Félix Bautista, who's had some incredible stuff from the big righty on the mound. And we're going to be joined by Justin Choi for this one. He is a contributor over at Fangraphs who wrote about the Orioles bullpen and all the success they've had so far this year just last week. But that's all coming up on this episode of the Locked On Orioles podcast.
You are Locked On Orioles, your daily Baltimore Orioles podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
So we're going to get right into it as we are going to be joined today by Justin Choi. He is a contributing writer over at Fangraphs who just wrote about the Orioles bullpen and really all its success so far this season. But first of all, Justin, thank you so much for joining us. I know it's a little more difficult, the time difference to get a podcast going, but thank you so much for being able to hop on today.
Yeah, thank you for having me, Connor. It's been a long day, but I'm ready to talk about baseball and the Orioles.
Yeah, let's dive right into it because, listen, the Orioles have 8 wins this year, and I think record-wise, they've kind of hit the expectation of what we saw in this roster. But I feel like it's kind of been flipped on what has been the struggles of the Orioles team versus what have been the strengths. People thought, okay, Trey Mancini, Cedric Mullins, Ryan Mountcastle, like this team will hit a little bit. And who are these arms, especially in the bullpen? How will they hold a lead? Well, instead, it's been the Orioles can't hit. And it's been the Orioles have one of the best bullpens in all of baseball. So I just wanted to start, where or what did you see from the O's pen? What did you see in the numbers that kind of made you either get assigned to or want to write about this bullpen?
So it's in the article, but I was inspired by the game on April 15th, the one between the Orioles and the Yankees, where I believe it was tied 1-1 until the 7th inning. And, the Yankees have like a great bullpen, right? They have like Michael King, they have Aroldis Chapman. So you'd expect the Yankees to come out at the end, but it's actually the Orioles who prevailed, right? Because the bullpen held its own, and then in the 11th inning, there was like a walk-off walk from Ramón Urías, which was very surprising to me, because it made me reconsider like what the strength of the Orioles bullpen is actually. And so I started looking at the numbers, and I figured out that it's at least a better pen than last year. And there's a lot of interesting arms in the bullpen. And so, I started off with like the obvious star of the bullpen, Jorge López, and I went down to Félix Bautista, Mike Baumann, even like names like Cionel Perez, who people might not know much about, but he still has some interesting traits about him, like a really good slider and a pretty solid fastball. So yeah, I think that's how I got my inspiration for writing about the Orioles.
Yeah, you mentioned Cionel Perez. I mean, this isn't obviously the best stat to use for relievers, but he's still got a 0 ERA on the season, and there's something to be said for that as well. But we're really going to focus on López and Bautista because I think López, it's easy to say, has been the best reliever for the Orioles so far this year. And I think Bautista, just advanced numbers-wise and stuff-wise, is definitely the most interesting guy in this bullpen. But let's start with López, who has basically become the Oriole closer at this point. He's got 4 saves on the season. He can go multiple innings and obviously is a converted starter where he was in the Orioles rotation for the last 2 seasons. But, you kind of looked into just the stuff he has now in the bullpen. And obviously the first thing that pops up is the velocity increase in that he's throwing a sinker that, first of all, we're not seeing as many sinkers in baseball in 2022, although they're making a little bit of a comeback. But the velocity on that sinker, it's making Orioles fans remember Zach Britton a little bit and just how effective can he be basically throwing 99 with sink.
Yeah, so there are actually 2 things I found about sinkers last year while I was writing for Fangraphs. The first thing is that, sinkers are less popular compared to 4-seamers, but if you look at the rise in fastball velocity, if you split them between sinkers and four-seamers, the rise in four-seamer velocity is very gradual, right? But the rise in sinker velocity is very rapid. It's like exponential, like this. And what it's telling me is that, yes, the sinker is becoming less popular, but what's happening is that the pitchers with good sinkers are using them more than ever, right? So they're maximizing their own talents. And the second thing I found about sinkers is that the faster the sinker, the more it helps to generate ground balls. And I'm looking at Jorge Lopez's Fangraphs page right now, and he currently has a 61.5 ground ball rate, right? Which, in addition to the strikeouts, is how he's limiting contact and how he's been such a great part of the Orioles bullpen. So, yeah, I mean, I buy the velocity gain. I buy that he's this good. Maybe not like 1 ERA good, but he's a fantastic pitcher nonetheless, and he should save a lot of games for the Orioles.
Yeah, and the other thing that makes him, so interesting is that because he's still, he's in the middle of a transition still. I mean, it hasn't even been, a year since he was a starter and was pitching. He pitched into the 6th, 7th inning for the Orioles at times last year. So you can give them 2 innings. And in that game, you mentioned where it goes 11 innings, like you can go to Jorge Lopez. He can give you 2 innings out of the bullpen at least sometimes. And it's also not just the sinker. He was a 4-pitch guy as a starter. And, it's interesting because I know some guys, when they transition to the bullpen, they identify 2 pitches sometimes and say, these are my 2 pitches that are good. I'm going to get rid of the rest of these pitches I used as a starter and kind of focus on these. We've seen Lopez still go with the 4-pitch mix. So when you kind of looked into that as well, like what of secondaries caught your eye from Jorge Lopez?
For Lopez, he has the curveball mainly, and it's not like the best curveball in terms of like the metrics, but what it does do is it provides a lot of separation in terms of velocity between the sinker and the curveball, because the sinker is at like 96, 97, right? And the curveball is like 84, 85. So you get this like super hard sinker coming in, and then, playing off that, there's like this like 10-mile velocity differential. And the curveball just kind of like drops out of the zone. And so that's been a big thing for him. And the other thing that he has is like he has a changeup. And I'm not sure like what to make of it right now because he doesn't throw it that often, but like essentially it's like a slower version of his sinker. Which, and a lot of guys tend to have like, if a guy has a sinker, then he also tends to have a changeup. So I think that like that also provides like a change of speed for him. That's going to be useful. And if he's not just going 1 inning, but also like 2 or 3 innings. Yeah,
and he's still got that 4-pitch mix, and we'll see. He could always start to lop off pitches. We could see throughout the season maybe he starts, throwing the changeup less or throwing the curveball less or whatever it may be. But he's going to rely on that sinker. And you mentioned that, ground ball rate over 60%. I believe as of Monday, the Oriole bullpen as a whole had the lowest fly ball rate against them in baseball. So it's, it's a lot of Lopez because he's pitching a good amount of innings and he's throwing that sinker, but everybody's getting in on the act for the Orioles. And here in just a second, we're going to talk about, at least one of the other guys who is really helping this Oriole bullpen this year. But first, got to talk about BlueNile.com because Mother's Day is coming up just this Sunday, just a few days away. And if you want to get your mom that special piece of jewelry, whether she prefers a statement piece or an everyday subtle elegance, BlueNile.com has fine jewelry at solid prices, and they have people who can help you find that right piece for every mom. Shop high-quality classic diamond earrings, elegant tennis bracelets, and gemstone pendant necklaces. And if you don't know what you're looking for, there's someone available via phone or chat to help you find a memorable gift at every budget, and they're available 24/7. So this Mother's Day, give mom something she'll treasure forever with fine jewelry from BlueNile.com. And Locked On Orioles listeners get $50 off their purchase of $500 or more. This podcast exclusive is only good through Mother's Day. So use the code Locked On. That is code Locked On. Plus, every order is insured, ships free, and arrives in discreet packaging that won't give away what's inside. Shop stress-free and find your forever piece. Go to BlueNile.com today. So we're here with Justin Choi, contributing writer for Fangraphs, who wrote a great piece about the Oriole bullpen last week and all of the success it's had. And, I get that the Orioles only have 8 wins coming in, but it feels like you can contribute almost every single one of their 8 wins to this bullpen, which at the end of the day, is a pretty big positive for the Orioles. But we've talked about Jorge Lopez. Now I want to talk about the guy who, it's not just you, Justin. I know Mike Petriello is just in love with this guy, and a lot of other people who really get into the nitty-gritty of pitching love Félix Bautista. And first of all, you look at him, and he is an imposing presence on the mound. He's like 6'8". He's around 250. He's huge. And he's had an incredible story because he was in high A last year, and he rocketed up the Orioles system to AAA and put up great numbers everywhere. Now, the walks were an issue, but the strikeouts were unbelievable. He gets put on the 40-man this offseason, and the O's say, you know what? It's time. And he makes the opening day bullpen. So there's so many weapons for Bautista. What stands out to you the most about Félix Bautista when you watch him pitch, or when you just dig into the numbers, which some of them, I mean, in terms of just his fastball metrics especially, are just ridiculous?
Yeah, so the number one reason why analysts love him so much is because his fastball, it literally has the most vertical movement of any pitcher in baseball right now. And that's like starters and relievers combined. He is number one. And so if you look at his fastball and you see it travel towards home plate, it's like a straight line, it doesn't really drop that much. And so, that's going to give the illusion of rise to hitters because they're expecting the pitch to drop more than, what's actually ends up happening. So they end up swinging under the pitch, right? And so that's giving him a lot of whiffs. And if you look at the leaders in fastball vertical movement, a lot of the times it's pitchers who don't really have the fastest fastballs. So there's going to be like this velocity movement trade-off, right? But in Bautista's case, he has that elite vertical movement, and he's also throwing 97, right? So that's like a beautiful combination to have. And it also helps that he throws from a very, very vertical arm slot, right? And not just from a regular 3/4 slot, which is probably adding a layer of deception to his pitches. So there's, the fastball is there. And also he has a pretty good slider too. It drops a lot. And as I mentioned before, it also has that similar differential in velocity like Lopez had. And there's also the splitter too, which I haven't looked into yet, but it's just kind of funny that he throws a splitter because you normally expect fastball, slider, and then changeup, but it's actually a splitter according to Baseball Savant. So, I'm going to have to look into that more, but even if he only has command of his fastball and slider, then he still probably is one of the best relievers in baseball down the road, even though he can still be kind of shaky at times. He's still in his first year in the bigs, right? He's still developing his command, so I think he has a lot of potential in him.
Yeah, and he's still a rookie, as you said. And the reason why, people look at his stuff and say, why did it take Bautista until 26 to get to the big leagues? Well, he struggled for a long time to throw strikes. And even when he was throwing 96, 97, he, for a while, had no idea where it was going. And that's why he was 25 years old in high A last year. And when you see a guy like that, you know that the command has to be really, really evading him. And that's what was happening. And he finally got it together enough last year to start shooting up the system. And now, you mentioned the he's got a good spin rate on the fastball. It's got the vertical movement. He's 6'8" basically, and he throws over the top. I mean, it feels like to me, if he can live at the top of the zone with the fastball, that pitch is almost going to be unhittable when you combine all those factors together.
Exactly. It's a matter of location because he has the stuff already. And the one thing I also mentioned in my piece is the new strategy the Orioles are having, which is setting up in the middle of the zone with their catchers. And so that's going to help Bautista move to the top of the zone because even if he aims for the middle of the zone, the movement on his fastball is going to take it to the top anyways. So he doesn't have to deliberately aim over the top like that. He can just, trust his catcher and just trust that if he just gets his fastball over the middle of the plate, then probably it's going to end up in a good location, regardless of whether he, has the best command that day or not. So it's interesting to see how that strategy is going to work down the road. It's been like just based on the overall bullpen performance, it's been working so far, I think. But it's still a kind of like a newfangled philosophy in catching. So, we're just going to see how it works out. And I'm very excited to see if Bautista can indeed continue to throw strikes.
Yeah, and it's working out for the Orioles. They've been top 5 in baseball in zone percentage for a while. I know they're at least top 10 at the moment from their entire staff. And it's interesting with the Orioles because obviously not a lot of wins have happened recently, but when you see that the Rays are also employing a similar strategy, and you have the Mariners doing something similar, we heard Matt Brash talk about it. You start to think, all right, the Orioles may be onto something now, because maybe we can't trust the Orioles yet, but we know we can trust the Rays. And if the O's are doing the same thing, it's definitely working out. But yeah, Bautista, just fun to watch, and a very cool story to be in the O's system as long as he has been. He started playing minor league baseball in 2013, and to finally get to the big leagues 9 years later and be this good has been ridiculous. But last thing for you, Justin, you mentioned most of the Oriole bullpen, at least in passing, a couple sentences about pretty much each guy, because this is something we've talked about on this podcast, is that the O's have basically put together a bullpen where, they really trust Jorge Lopez, and, guys like Dillon Tate, have that bullpen experience in the majors for a while. And even a guy like Paul Fry has the same thing. But other than that, they've seemingly put together a lot of rookies who kind of each do one thing really well. And they're trying to find out, how they can piece that together to try and win baseball games. So I know you mentioned Perez, but were there any, a trait of any of these other guys, whether it be, Brian Baker, Mike Baumann, who I know you mentioned, Perez, Paul Fry, any trait from one of those guys who also really stuck out to you? Because there is a lot of guys where, if that one thing is working well, they start to elevate to the level of, maybe a Lopez, who's probably the best reliever in this bullpen right
now. If I had to make a pick, it's probably Joey Crable. Is it Crable?
It is.
Yeah, Crable. So I was looking at his changeup, which he's throwing basically as his primary pitch this season. So I believe the usage is around 40%. Might be wrong, but there is a reason why I trust his changeup, and that's because if you scroll down the leaderboard of pitchers with the most vertical, downward vertical movement on their changeup, I believe that he is in 4th place, and pretty much the only names that are above him are people like Logan Webb and Devin Williams. 2 pitchers who have probably the best changeups in baseball. And Crable has that kind of changeup. He just maybe didn't have the most faith in his changeup, and also the command issues, of course. But he's throwing that pitch more than ever, and maybe it can be a case where throwing your best pitch more equals better results for him. So I think he's definitely a reliever to keep an eye on.
Yeah, it's an interesting pitch, and he's got an interesting delivery where he kind of he double clutches before he throws, and he kind of throws off timing as well. And he's, I mentioned the Rays. He's another guy who the Orioles picked up, who was just a Rays 40-man roster casualty, who the Rays brought up to the bigs, kind of liked, but couldn't keep because they have a million good players they need to get on the 40-man roster. And just like the Orioles did with Cole Sulser a couple of years ago, they did it with Joey Crable again. They said, we'll take him, and we'll see if he can work in our bullpen. But it's exciting. The Orioles aren't scoring many runs, but if they can get up 2-1 after 5 innings, O's fans have felt pretty good about that this year because this bullpen's been able to hold that. But Justin, thank you so much for joining us to talk about this Oriole bullpen, which for a team with not many wins has definitely been the bright spot here in 2022. Before I let you go, just wanted to give you a chance to plug your Twitter and plug anything you might have coming up at Fangraphs or other places that people can check out to read your work.
Just not much for me. I'm going to keep writing at Fangraphs. My Twitter handle is in my Fangraphs byline, so you can just click that if you want to see my stupid tweets once in a while. Yeah. So, but yeah, it's been fun talking about the Orioles, and I appreciate having me on the show.
So our thanks again to Justin Choi of Fangraphs for joining the pod to talk about the Oriole bullpen, its success this year, and specifically, Jorge Lopez and Félix Bautista and how good they have been so far this season. And Specifically, Lopez, of course, pitched a scoreless inning on Wednesday night, closing out the Orioles' 9-4 victory over the Minnesota Twins. And we'll get to the 5 things you need to know from that O's victory over the Twins on Wednesday night with yours truly in the ballpark. But first, got to tell you about Athletic Greens at AG1, because our next partner, a product I use literally every day. And I started taking AG1 from Athletic Greens because I wanted better gut health and I wanted more energy for this podcast. Wanted to continue to bring you great content 5 days a week on the pod. Where you're wondering, what is this stuff? Well, with one delicious scoop of AG1, you're absorbing 75 high-quality vitamins, minerals, whole food source superfoods, probiotics, and adaptogens to start your day right. And it supports really everything in your life in terms of health. And it's lifestyle friendly. It contains no GMOs or nasty chemicals, supports better sleep quality, and supports mental clarity and alertness and recovery. And it costs you less than $3 a day, and you're investing in your health. And it's cheaper than, getting a coffee every single day. So right now, it's time to reclaim your health and arm your immune system with convenient daily nutrition. It's just one scoop in a cup of water every day. That's it. No need for a million different pills and supplements to look out for your health. And to make it easy, Athletic Greens is going to give you a free 1-year supply of immune-supporting vitamin D and 5 free travel packs with your first purchase. All you have to do is visit athleticgreens.com/MLB Network. Again, that is athleticgreens.com/MLB Network to take ownership over your health and pick up the ultimate daily nutritional insurance. And today's episode of the Locked On Orioles podcast is also brought to you by betonline.net, which is your one-stop shop for everything you could need in the sports wagering world. We got the NBA playoffs in full swing. NHL playoffs going. Shout out to the Washington Capitals taking game 1 from the Florida Panthers on Tuesday night. We've also, of course, got the Major League Baseball season. And you can place wagers on it all, get all the lines you need, all the picks, all the sports news. You can listen to podcasts like this one as well. You can do it all at betonline.net. And it's not just that either. You can even play your favorite Vegas casino games right from the comfort of your own couch. I mean, what could be better than that? Plus, of course, all the lines you need. It's really the one-stop shop. It is the place to go for all your sports wagering needs. And again, that is betonline.net, where the game starts. So we talked about the Oriole bullpen, and the Oriole bullpen put up a nice little day. 5 scoreless innings from the Oriole bullpen on Wednesday night, leading the O's to a 9-4 victory over the Minnesota Twins, as the O's get one back from the Twins after Minnesota had taken the first 2 games of this series from the Orioles. O's fight back and get this one on Wednesday night. And I was in attendance in the ballpark, my second game of the season, and the first win that I've seen from the Orioles this year. And I'm going to get you the 5 things you need to know from the Orioles' 9-4 victory over the Twins. And the first thing you need to know is that the Orioles won the trade. I'm going to say it now. The Orioles won the Dylan Bundy trade. And this isn't even as much about the other side of the trade, because of course it was Bundy versus Bradish in Baltimore on Wednesday night, the two who were traded for each other. But wow. I mean, we saw Dylan Bundy pitch really well at times in an Oriole uniform. We also saw Dylan Bundy get hit around a bit in an Oriole uniform. But or not, this was maybe the worst I've ever seen Dylan Bundy look. 3 2/3 innings, 9 runs on 11 hits the Orioles got him for. 3 Ks, 2 walks, 2 homers. The O's just crushed Dylan Bundy. Got 6 runs off him in the third, got 3 in the fourth. They ended up with 9 runs on 12 hits, equaling their season high in runs. I mean, the O's just simply smashed him in this game, had 10 hard hit balls against Bundy in the 3 2/3 innings that he threw. Listen, the Orioles traded Bundy. He was pretty good right when they traded him, when he pitched for the Angels. Hasn't been great since then. He'd been good this year so far, but back-to-back pretty bad starts from Dylan Bundy. Not looking great. Fastball velo wasn't good. Orioles just jumped all over him, and maybe it's getting their offense started as well. But the second thing you need to know from the Orioles win is, on the flip side, yes, Kyle Bradish did struggle as well. Now, He was not nearly as bad as Dylan Bundy was on Wednesday night, but he did struggle. Kyle Bradish facing off against the guy he was traded for. 4 innings, 4 runs on 6 hits, 3 strikeouts, 2 walks, a home run allowed, through 70 pitches in his second career major league start. 6 hard hit balls against Bradish on the night. Now has a 5.40 ERA through 2 starts in the big leagues. And it was kind of an interesting start for Bradish, who didn't have the crazy good looking stuff, but he threw 3 scoreless innings to start the game. Now, he had base runners in each of those 3 innings, but was able to get out of it, throw some good pitches, and was looking not great, but solid. He had thrown 35 pitches through 3 scoreless innings. The Orioles got him 6 runs in the bottom of the 3rd. He sat around for a while, and he came back out in the top of the 4th, and everything went haywire. Leadoff walk to Luis Arraez, 2-run homer from Carlos Correa, made it 6-2. Then an immediate 4-pitch walk, and then he hit a batter. And that's when you could tell he had completely lost all command. And at the end of it, he threw 35 pitches in the 4th inning alone after throwing 35 in the first 3, gave up all 4 of those runs in that 4th inning, gave up a couple more hits. Even the couple of sac flies in the inning were hard hit out to deep right field. And he only got out of that inning because a line drive that should have been a base hit into right field with runners on first and third and 2 outs and should have made it a 6-5 game. The liner hit Gary Sanchez, who was the runner at first base trying to go to second, just couldn't get out of the way of it. It was a 101 mile per hour hit off the bat, and Sanchez just couldn't get out of the way, plain and simple. And that out, a runner being struck in the field of play, ended the inning, got Bradish out of it, and that was the end of his day. But it should have been 6-5, and Dillon Tate was warming. Tate probably would have come in the game there because that was the 9-hitter who hit that ball. It was going to be back to the top of the order in Luis Arraez, and that was going to be it for Bradish. So even a little bit of luck got him out of that inning. But again, it wasn't great stuff from Kyle Bradish, especially in that 4th inning. But there were some positives to take away. He did get 8 whiffs on the day, and 6 of them came from his slider. He threw 23 sliders. That was his second most used pitch on the night. It was 35 fastballs. So he threw exactly 50%. 23 sliders, so about a third of his pitches were sliders, and then he mixed in 9 curveballs and 3 changeups on the night. And the slider was really good. 23 of them, 13 swings, 6 whiffs on the night. Now, not a lot of those pitches were in the strike zone. He got a lot of chases on the slider, which is a good thing, but he only dropped it in for 1 called strike all night. But at the end of the day, slider looked good. Again, the fastball was in the zone, but it was getting hit a lot. That's what happened in his first start as well against Boston. But that slider is by far his best pitch. That over-the-top curveball we had heard about, we haven't seen as much, just 9 of them. He did get 1 whiff on the curveball on Wednesday night, and that pitch did look okay. But again, just fastball kind of eluding him through his first 2 starts. He's going to have to figure that out. But the big takeaway, 6 whiffs on the slider. That pitch looked really, really good from Kyle Bradish, and that's definitely something positive to take away from this one. Third thing you need to know is that the Orioles offense did kind of break out in this one, but you have to take it with a little grain of salt because it did come over the course of just 2 innings. Again, the Orioles scored 9 runs on the day, matching their season high, and they got 12 hits. But they got 6 in the 3rd and 3 in the 4th, all off of Dylan Bundy, and did not score in any of the other 5 innings, including 4 consecutive scoreless innings to end the game. So, it's a little wary just because, they got the 9 runs on 11 hits off of Bundy. They got just 1 hit over the next 4 1/3 innings off the 2 Minnesota relievers, Danny Colombe and Giovanni Moran. So again, 9 runs was plenty enough to win this game, but it came in just 2 innings, and everywhere else they weren't looking great. But I will say it was nice to see some of the output that the Orioles got. Cedric Mullins, 2 for 5 with a 2-run homer that opened the scoring off Bundy in the 3rd, a shot into the flag court in right field for his 3rd home run of the season. Trey Mancini, 3 for 3. We talked about this on Wednesday's episode. Trey reached base all 4 times on Wednesday night, 3 for 3 with 3 singles and a walk. He did not have any hard hit balls on the day, 3 infield singles and a walk. We will take it from Trey Mancini, who's been hitting the ball hard all year and hasn't been rewarded. Now the last 2 nights for the Orioles, he's not hitting it hard at all, and he's got back-to-back multi-hit games, 5 hits in his last 2 games, not hitting it hard, and he's being rewarded. So the luck's starting to swing the other way for Mancini. How about Santander? He gets himself an RBI single. He gets himself a walk as well, reaching base twice. Austin Hayes with 3 hard hit balls, had a 1 for 3 with 2 RBIs on the day. Ryan Mountcastle with a 2-hit day, 2 hard hit balls, also had an RBI. Rougned Odor continued to his bat heating up, had a scorching RBI single in this game in the 3rd inning. Ramón Urías had a good day as well, which we'll get to. And, even Jorge Mateo, got himself a bloop double and used his speed and had 2 hard hit balls other than that as well. Only one Oriole did not have a hit. It was Robinson Chirinos, who went 0 for 4 with 2 strikeouts. He's now hitting 146 on the season. It's been rough to watch him, but 8 of the 9 Orioles had a hit. 3 Orioles had a multi-hit game. You like to see that from the offense. But I mentioned Ramón Urías, and the 4th thing you need to know is that, yes, Ramón Urías only had 1 hit in this game, but man, did he need that home run that he hit. Urías with a 2-run homer in the 3rd inning that made it 6-0 against Bundy and the Twins. Finally, his first home run of the year, hit it out to dead center field, basically the deepest part of the ballpark. And again, it was his only hit of the day, but he also had a scorching line drive in this game in which Nick Gordon made a great diving catch in left field to rob Urías of extra bases as well. Should have had a 2-hit day. His average, still at 205 on the year, but we know that expected batting average is around 320 for Urías, despite the fact that he's hitting 200 because he's hitting the ball so hard. And he was finally rewarded with a homer, scorched 2 baseballs in this one, getting the start at 3rd base. And I think this is the start of the turnaround for Ramón Urías this season. It was just a great, great sign to see him hit the ball out of the ballpark. And the 5th and final thing you need to know from this one, the Orioles 9-4 win over the Twins, is that the bullpen is back. After a little bit of a shaky start to the month of May, the Orioles bullpen over the last 3 games has not been at its best, but they locked things down on Wednesday night after Kyle Bradish, only lasted those 4 innings, allowing 4 runs. Cionel Perez, Dillon Tate, and Jorge López combined for 5 scoreless innings. How about Cionel Perez? 2 scoreless out of the bullpen, 1 hit, a strikeout, and a walk. Dillon Tate threw 2 scoreless, 1 hit, 2 strikeouts, and a walk. And then Jorge López came in, no strikeouts, but did have a 1-2-3 9th inning to close out the 9-4 victory. Now, Cionel Perez got hit hard. He allowed 4 hard hit balls in those 2 innings, but got 2 big double plays to help him through. Dillon Tate forced a double play. Orioles turned 5 double plays in this game, which matched their all-time high for a single game, and just a really good outing from the bullpen where they needed more of them. And it was big to have Tate and Perez each go 2 innings. That was really huge for this Oriole bullpen. And it was interesting to see Dillon Tate, who's always been that kind of sinker guy who will throw that sinker again and again. He threw 13 changeups, 13 sinkers, and 6 sliders in this game, equaled his changeup usage with the sinker. And that changeup got 3 whiffs on 7 swings. It looked really, really good in this one. Just something to watch from Dillon Tate moving forward. And for Cionel Perez, it was his slider that was working. Got 3 whiffs on 5 swings from the slider through 9 fastballs and 7 sliders in this one. Slider from the lefty looked good. Big day, bounce back day for the bullpen. That's kind of what this episode has been about. The Oriole bullpen having so much success, and they finish it off with 5 scoreless innings to get a 9-4 win over the Minnesota Twins on Wednesday night to at least stop themselves from getting swept in this series. Orioles now 9-16 on the season. But the O's do have one more game in this series against Minnesota coming up on Thursday to finish up the 4-game set. O's looking to make it an even split in the 4-game series as Spencer Watkins will head to the mound for the Baltimore Orioles. The 29-year-old right-hander will make his 5th start of the year. In his previous 4 starts, been pretty good. A 2.55 ERA in 17 2/3 innings. However, only 8 strikeouts on the year for Watkins, but keeps using that new sweeping slider that's worked so well. His last start against Boston came on Saturday. 1 run on 5 hits over 4 2/3, struck out 3 and walked 1. And then on the other side, it's a guy I've been calling for the Orioles to sign for the last 2 years, but the Twins signed him instead. It's Chris Archer, The 33-year-old righty makes the start for Minnesota, who's also been pretty good this year. Through 4 starts, he's got a 2.93 ERA and 14 strikeouts in 15 1/3 innings. His last time out against Tampa on Saturday, 4 innings, 2 hits, 1 run, 4 Ks, but he did walk 3. He has walked 3 batters in each of his last 3 starts, and none of those starts went longer than 4 1/3 innings. So Archer's been solid, but the pitch count keeps getting up, and he can't even really get through 5 innings. So the bullpen's going to be big for both teams in Thursday's series finale. And then I'll be back with you for one more episode here on the podcast coming up tomorrow, a Friday episode to finish off the week. I'll recap the final game between the O's and the Twins, get you the 5 things you need to know from that one. We'll do a Farm Friday segment, taking on a look at some of the best Orioles minor league performers from the past week. And then I'll get you ready for the weekend series at Camden Yards. The struggling Kansas City Royals come into town this weekend, and I'll give you a preview for those 3 games in Baltimore Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. But again, that's all coming up on tomorrow's episode. Until then, I'm Connor Newcomb, and this has been the Locked On Orioles podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.